Welcome to the debate. The tension is already palpable as the upcoming Ashes series pits England's newly structured squad against the established formidable home lineup of Australia. Our source material has analysed the relative strengths across both teams, but there is one battle that, well, historically defines the victor down under, the fast bowling attacks.
Absolutely. And I think we really need to focus on the crucial question of which team possesses the potentially decisive fast bowling unit for this particular series. On one side, we have Australia's long-standing pedigree and specific home soil credentials. And then on the other, England's high-risk injection of, genuine pace and high-ceiling talent. It really is a contest between proven quality and disruptive potential.
Precisely. And I'll be arguing that the immediate potential for disruption, provided by the sheer game-changing speed of the England pace battery, offers the greatest leverage and therefore the decisive advantage in this contest. They are essentially built to create chaos, and chaos is probably what's needed to win in Australia.
And I'll be maintaining the opposing view, that the proven formidable quality, the depth, and the established experience of Australia's seamers will rule the roost, providing the reliability and consistent pressure that trumps any high-ceiling, but let's face it, inherently fragile gambles.
Okay, let's delve into why England's strategic pivot isn't just a gamble, but I think a necessary and highly calculated approach. For years, we saw English attacks relying on seam and swing down under, often finding that the lack of genuine pace meant they just couldn't exploit the bounce or generate the required carry on flatter, day 3 Australian pitches. For the first time since, 2010-11, England is primed to hit Australia with a battery of genuine 90-mile-an-hour, 145 kph quicks. This pace is fundamentally suited to make an impact that their traditional seamers, often missed. When you have the genuine velocity of Joe for Archer, assuming the miraculous return holds up, and the sheer energy of Mark Wood, who is on his own self-described last hurrah, you have bowlers who can dictate terms to the opposition. Past failures suggest that maybe sacrificing the old-school skills of Broad, Anderson, and Wokes for this raw pace is the only logical strategic trade-off, especially when you factor in the depth available. Guys like Gus Atkinson, whose height generates steep bounce, and Josh Tongue.
Okay, that's a compelling argument for the strategic intent, sure, but it relies almost entirely on the successful deployment of, let's be honest, highly questionable assets. I come at it from a position of quality over hopeful potential. The source material accurately describes Australia's seam attack as awesome, a unit that has frankly ruled the roost for a decade in home conditions. We're talking about quality that is a known and, crucially, a quantifiable quantity. Mitchell Starc is rightly lauded as a great of the game for his ability to break open matches, and Josh Hazlewood remains formidable, nearing that milestone of 300 Test wickets. And importantly, Australia has specialists like Scott Boland, whose 6 for 7 spell during the last Ashes is a tangible benchmark of maximizing those unique home conditions.
This established, reliable core is, I think, fundamentally superior to England's reliance on players whose physical history is marred by what the source calls 4 years of frailty. Excitement about Archer's return must be tempered by the reality that stability wins series, not just brief flashes of brilliance dependent on perfect health.
You raise a critical point about reliability, suggesting Australia's quality is a known constant while England is gambling. But we must scrutinize this perception of Australian reliability, especially when discussing a series defined by 5 grueling tests. The material explicitly flags that England's key advantage hinges on the fitness of Wood and Archer, acknowledging the risk that a mid-match setback would be a disaster. I accept that risk, but I'd argue that Australia also faces signs of mortality that undercut your perception of stability. Consider the immediate situation. The initial absence of Pat Cummins, one of their absolute cornerstones. This immediately forces one of Australia's lesser lights, fringe players like Abbott or Doggett, into the center stage rotation. They are specialist squad members, often used for specific tracks or as depth, not primary match-winning weapons. That introduces undeniable uncertainty right from the first test, surely. Furthermore, while the Australian core is experienced, they are not immune to systemic decline. The source material itself questions if age will finally weary Stark and Hazelwood across this demanding five-test stretch. So we are trading England's concentrated individual fitness risk for Australia's systemic risk of age, which could degrade their collective performance over time. The potential upside for England's high-risk pace is a fundamental change in the match dynamic. Australia's upside is, arguably, merely maintaining the status quo.
Okay, that's a fair point about the necessary reliance on depth players like Abbott or Doggett, who are perhaps more used to specific domestic workloads rather than primary test roles. However, the risk of unavoidable decline spread across a veteran unit that has mastered its craft is, I would argue, less catastrophic than the catastrophic risk concentrated in two fragile individuals. I mean, if Stark bowls at 85% pace, he still maintains world-class control. If Wood or Archer break down mid-test, well, England loses its entire strategy, doesn't it? Let's maybe pivot to the tactical element, the impact of home credentials and targeting. My position really hinges on the certainty of Australia's ability to exploit home conditions, exemplified by Boland's exceptional record. England, relying on pace, is essentially betting that speed alone is the definitive answer, but the conditions often favor accuracy and movement, which are, Hazelwood's absolute hallmarks.
But that proven quality can become predictable, right? Which is what England is actively trying to exploit. The source material notes that Boland has been earmarked as a target in some quarters, promising a fascinating tactical duel. England's strategy isn't just about scoring runs against Boland, it's designed to deny him the specific lengths and the pressure release points he craves. By increasing the run rate against him, England forces Boland to alter his relentless accuracy and search for wickets, putting him into uncomfortable scenarios where he is potentially less effective and less economical. This isn't just about hoping for success, it's about actively creating chaos using pace and aggressive stroke play to shift the dynamic away from the sort of suffocation and attrition Australia prefers. The goal is to maximize the impact of our raw speed by minimizing the comfort of their established workhorses. If you can force Australia to burn Stark or Hazelwood faster, maybe the entire structure of their rotation collapses.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that the mere act of targeting Boland somehow negates his ability to execute his highly specialized skill set. His success isn't accidental. It's built on muscle memory and an intimate knowledge of exactly where to land the ball consistently on these pitches for maximum effect. England's high-pace theory is sound on paper, perhaps, but Australia's attack has the established and, crucially, current form to back up its credentials. We are talking about Hazelwood, who has shown magnificent form recently in white ball matches, a clear indicator, I think, that the concerns about age and decline are premature for this specific series. Hazelwood brings the relentless pressure that doesn't just take wickets but actively restricts scoring, ensuring that even if England's quicks perform, they might still face massive run deficits.
Which brings us back, I suppose, to defining decisive advantage. I argue that the sheer speed, that sustained 90-mile-an-hour, 145 kph threat, is the only factor that offers a unique, wicket-taking capability that fundamentally alters the terms of engagement. Previous England attacks down under often settled into a pattern of containment which, let's face it, invariably leads to defeat. This pace dictates terms because it changes the geometry of the pitch. It forces batsmen onto the back foot earlier, creates steeper bounce that challenges decision-making, and significantly increases the strain on the opposition's lower order. That ability to induce high-pressure breakthroughs, not simply contain the scoring, is strategically the most decisive tool England possesses, in my view.
I'm just not convinced by that line of reasoning, because for me, a decisive advantage requires certainty, not just the potential for chaotic breakthroughs. Australia knows exactly what it gets from its veteran unit: a steady, high-quality rotation, consistent pressure, and, critically, the ability to perform what we call old ball donkey work. And this term, old ball donkey work, is absolutely vital in a 5-test series. It describes the consistent application of pressure and accurate bowling across long spells when the ball is old, conditions are flat, and the quicks need rest. Who provides that volume and that relentlessness for England when the high-speed options, which by their very nature are high effort and low volume, inevitably need rest or, suffer minor breakdowns? Australia has the proven personnel, Hazelwood, Stark, and Boland, who can deliver that essential, unglamorous, yet absolutely foundational workhorse capability. England, it seems to me, relies too heavily on the pacemen hitting their straps and staying healthy, leaving a massive potential gap for consistent application if they fail.
Okay, we both agree that the contest is nip and tuck, as the source says. But the ultimate tipping point, for me, rests on whether the sheer potential disruption and raw speed of England's 90-mile-an-hour battery can overcome the inherent uncertainty surrounding the fitness of key players. This generation of quicks is built to attack and impact Australian conditions in a way that previous sides fundamentally could not, offering a clear, if inherently risky pathway to victory through breakthroughs, not attrition.
Whereas I maintain the formidable nature of Stark, Hazelwood, and Boland, backed by the history of their success in Australia, provides a foundational strength and reliability that England's contingent, pace-reliant attack simply cannot match currently. Australia holds the advantage of proven, formidable performance and experience that has delivered results for a decade. Their risk is systematic decline over time. England's risk feels like immediate failure of key components.
So we've established that both sides present highly credible, evidence-based cases for possessing the superior attack, emphasizing the fascinating strategic tension between high-ceiling but injury-prone disruptive potential and the formidable, experienced quality that guarantees consistent suffocation.
Indeed. And the source material certainly highlights that this contest may well come down to which set of bowlers can simply stay on the field for the duration, ensuring there remains much more to explore in the material regarding how these strategic strengths and inherent weaknesses interact across the whole series.